welcome to the SW7 Academy podcast with myself, Sam Warburton, and head coach Chris Toombs, and we will teach you about all the elite behaviours and training methods that you need to know to build you into the best possible athlete. Just a quick word about our sponsors, Tramshed Tech. Tramshed Tech is a collaborative community where startups scale up, a platform for growth supporting the tech, digital and creative industries. Like SW7, it's a community made up of high performers where having a growth mindset is key. Tramshed Tech can help you on your journey whether your business needs space to work, skills training or business support services. Their award-winning Startup Academy is open for registration for pre-start or early stage businesses. Tramshed Tech are currently expanding to new locations in Wales including Cardiff, Newport, Barry and Swansea. So if you're an entrepreneur looking for space to work, business support or skills training, head to tramshedtech.co.uk or at tramshedtech on social media to find out more. Okay, welcome back. Fourth episode of SW7 Academy, and this week we're talking about how to train like a rugby player, but specifically how to program it. And I think the beauty of training like a rugby player, which we enjoy, is, as you've mentioned, got to be strong as you can, big as you can, fast as you can, fit as you can, skillful as you can. That's the great fun thing about it. Then the difficult thing is, how do you put it all together? And I think this is one of the biggest questions probably, and still causes a lot of debate between S&C coaches, physiotherapists, what is the ideal training week? And, people ask us, I got a big leg session on a Monday. And if you listen to last week's episode, you'll understand when we say you can do legs and running on the same day, if your volume's right. They think, I got running on a Monday, but I'm going to have muscle soreness on Tuesday. So how can I do my team session? So when do I do my leg training? So many questions. So I guess we'll start off with maybe pre-season. So you haven't got to factor in a game on the weekend. If you as a head of an S&C department, what would an ideal training week look like for you to make sure you can cover the full spectrum of gym sessions, speed sessions, fitness sessions, and how can a young athlete fit that into his busy schedule?
Nice. What a tough...
It's
a tough challenge. Yeah. It's a tough question, but I think this is a really great episode and I think it could be really, really helpful for young players particularly. The answer is it depends, and then I'll try and build into that.
More
the
than
reasons,
one. Yeah.
The reasons why, and I think the reasons why, and it goes back to what we talked about last episode, which was these kind of training groups. So I think, and it goes back one episode further, which is about the testing and understanding your strengths and weaknesses as a player, and then working on those. So I know we're going to cover off pre-season, and then we'll cover off in-season as well, which hopefully shapes a training week for a player who's aspiring to play at a higher level at club level, or even hitting the sort of academy or pro level. But ultimately, there's a lot of things that need to be factored into this, which is why, like we said, we always love the challenge of programming for young people, or even for pro teams, is still really, really quite a difficulty. But if you go back a couple of episodes or last episode, Train to Develop is young players with relatively low experience of training. Train to Compete is those guys, or guys and girls in their 20s who are sort of in the peak of their careers. And you've got the Train to Survive/Thrive, which is those who are slightly older players. Their needs are all going to subtly be a little bit different. So I'll try and put as much context around what ideal looks like if you're totally injury free and you've got very limited time demand. So what I mean by that, if you've just finished your GCSEs or you've finished your A-levels if you live in the UK, and you've got the whole summer for pre-season, for example, you've got that real golden window of opportunity to really, really physically develop. You've got uninterrupted training time because you haven't got the game exposure at the end of the week. And as we all know, unfortunately, being a collision and sort of physical domination sport, there is a risk of getting injured every time you take the field. So you will have training interruptions when you've got match day to factor in. So if we've got no match day to factor in, I think you go back to your testing and your development needs first and foremost. If you need to develop your speed, strength and power, which are the qualities that I think are going to differentiate you as a player at the highest possible level, don't neglect fitness. I'm not saying for 1 minute you don't neglect fitness, but the realities are, as we've talked about on previous shows as well, developing high levels of strength takes the most time. So you need, in a way, a 12-week or 16-week uninterrupted period within your training calendar is absolute gold, especially if you're a young player. So what I would try and do to answer this question as effectively as possible, you've understood what you need. You've understood what's strong and what's weak in terms of your physical profile. And then you've got to fit all these things together. Bearing in mind your brother's a physio, a very good one at that. Do your prehab. You've got no game demand, so you've got that extra 15 minutes a week or 20 minutes a week or even 30 minutes a week to focus on your shoulders, your neck, your hip mobility, all the things that are going to literally help bulletproof you from injury down the line. Not necessarily today, but down the line, and look after the body for your future body, not just for your body right now. So that's one thing that's really important. So I guess let's start on a Monday. You haven't got the game demands on a Saturday, so you're feeling relatively fresh. The one thing I would do is probably front load my work so that I do a really good session, full body weights on a Monday.
Would that be first step?
Well, again, if you've just finished your A levels and you've got all the time in the world and you don't work and you've got a bit of time to dedicate to training, I like to couple speed and weights together because you've got a very anabolic window then, because speed is a great precursor to strength training. So going back historically into the academy days when you were developing, Monday morning would typically be a speed session, very short, not an enormous amount of volume, 200 to 300 meters of total high speed output. When you think about that, that's 10 accelerations over 20 meters gives you a total of 200 meters of volume. So it's very high quality. We're talking about preparing to do speed as well. Sometimes takes longer than actually doing the speed session itself. So getting ready to sprint might take 20 minutes, and sprinting, even with really good long recoveries, might take another 20 minutes. So you've got a 40-minute speed session at the beginning of the week, and then you've got a full body weight session. And like we talked about with the VBT episode, volume kills productivity long term. We don't want high volume. I know we laughed off air about 5 sets of hack squats, 12 to 15 reps, 5 sets of leg extensions, 15 to 20 reps, 5 sets of leg curls, 15 to 20 reps.
You can't run off that.
All you've got to do there is you're just creating a level of fatigue that's going to actually impact you. The intentions are right in terms of you've shown up to the gym, but your programming kind of quality has just not been on point because you're just basically doing the wrong thing at the wrong time. We can't knock the work ethic, but ultimately it's about intelligent programming is going to be the difference between those high quality outputs and basically creating too much fatigue. So speed and full body weights on a Monday would be ideal. An integration in that weight session around that, like I say, that prehab, looking after shoulders, looking after neck. You don't have to do it in every session, but be mindful that if you've got 3 weight sessions a week, you can do shoulder prehab in 1, neck protective type work in session 2, and I would never neglect hip mobility across my whole career. You'd be amazed how many people text me now, having been out of the pro game for a few years, saying, oh my God, I wish I'd listened to you at 20. Now at 30, I'm like a rocking horse and I can't even move. But anyway, you're laughing because you were one who was compliant, but there's boys who weren't, and there's boys who now spend their money going to stretch classes to make sure that their movement quality is on point for professional rugby. So it's quite ironic and it's quite funny for me as well.
But you know what? You're right though, because I remember turning up to a session and there was an elder statesman in his mid-30s. He was warming up like crazy, doing mobility, and I was 20, 21, just rock up and train. And then I remember when I was like 25, 26, I was like, oh, that's why he was doing it, because you have to, So I learned.
Who was it? Name him.
Gareth Cooper, number 9.
Yeah, amazing.
Always
great.
stretching.
What an explosive animal.
Yeah,
but
very
Gareth
explosive.
was brilliant. Do you know who else was brilliant? And I'm naming some of the players of old days.
Go on then.
Ben Blair.
What good
Ben
pro
Blair
you
was
made then,
phenomenal.
mobility.
Yeah, the Cantabrians were great. I mean,
Yeah.
I know we had some overseas players of real high quality back in the day, but Ben Blair was an unbelievable pro.
He was.
Got to name drop him because I think I like the boys who are unbelievable pros.
Yeah.
I know we'll not name and shame, but I know we'll talk about some of the Mavericks down the line.
We can get onto that.
Oh mate, one day we'll do. Our most mischievous 15s could have a fair few characters in them. But let's get back to point.
Oh, sorry, I set you off on mobility, but you learn the hard way.
Yeah.
So take your advice and do it now.
Nobody at 21 thinks hip mobility is important.
No,
at
but
31, they think it's really important, and then when you're 41, it's the cornerstone of your program. But anyway, we'll get on to mobility. But mobility is definitely something that's going to be part and parcel. And I always say it, and I used to, and I did just recently. I was in for those who don't know, I was in America 2020 and 2021 for USA's Major League Rugby seasons, and I programmed in kind of it wasn't mandatory, but it was very heavily encouraged yoga and sort of movement prep type work. And so many of the boys kind of really bought into, even if it was only 20 to 30 minutes, really, really targeted effort around sort of those areas that get tight as rugby players. And I guess some people, just to add a little caveat to that, props, some of them have to be tight in order to kind of protect themselves from some of the work that they have to do in the game. But for the most part, the outside backs, hurdle type mobility was a cornerstone of our kind of pre-work preparation type stuff. But speed and weights Monday, I think we just got to get back onto that. It depends. I really like to try and do more work on specific days and have more rest days. And I think if you can have Monday, Wednesday, Friday in the off season, but train twice, so you do a total of 6 sessions a week, I actually think whether you're looking to develop or you're looking to stay in that kind of train to compete phase of your career, rest days are absolute gold. That adaptation, I think this is another myth that I'm sure we'll bust as we discuss various topics on this pod. Rest days are crucial. That's where adaptation's occurring. People make the mistake that they think spending 2 hours in the gym or longer is where the gains are being made. No, the gains are being made, and it goes full circle to episode 1 on elite behaviors. Gains are being made by hydration, nutrition, sleep, lifestyle, stress management, soft tissue quality, all these things. That's where the gains are being made, away from the gym. The gym is stimulating the gains. The speed work is stimulating, adaptation to the training stress. And that's really important for us to differentiate, because I think people think more, you were a case in point before you joined the Blues Academy.
Big time, yeah.
You were, I'm going to train every day because that's going to definitely benefit me. Whereas
I trained 20 days out of 21 on a Christmas holiday.
Yeah.
And I remember coming to the academy and you were like, back up.
Yeah,
like,
but
stop.
I'm still, mate, I'm still having these conversations with young players now. I had one, and this is genuine, true story. I had one yesterday with a player who, like I said, just struggles to trust the process of rest days being really, really important. And then I've got another example where a young player who's literally fed back to me, oh my God, and I think I've used this example before because it's true. They're like, oh my God, my body feels way better. I'm doing half the amount of work. I'm doing better quality work, but my, the physiological responses and the results are getting better because I'm actually allowing my body to rest and recover from the stimulus and adapt to the training stress. And that's the big, big lesson, I think, out of all of these about getting the program right. A very good friend of mine who's a phenomenal sports science practitioner who's worked in the NFL and for a couple of football teams. She said to me just recently at a conference, the most important thing, apart from attendance, which we've touched on in previous episodes, apart from attendance, the most important thing for a young player particularly, or any player, is get the schedule right. So I know we're spending a bit of time and I've gone round in circles a little bit and we're still only on Monday. It's like speed and weight.
Complex,
speed and weight. It is complex, and that's why we're still fascinated by it, and that's why we still love it. But let's go back to pre-season and you're training with your club, which makes life slightly easier for me. You got really good quality outputs on a Monday, speed and weights. You've then got to worry about technical work and tactical work and the running demands of the sport and the collision demands of the sport in your pre-season training, whether you're playing Division 6 or whether you're playing semi-pro at a Premiership level.
This will be a Tuesday now.
Yeah, this will be a Tuesday. Yeah. So Tuesday will be, by definition, a relatively heavy day from a metabolic demand standpoint, because unless you've got really experienced coaches, chances are they're going to probably give you too much work. They're going to give you some shuttle running. They're going to give you stuff that's not necessarily that fun. They're going to give you burpees. They're going to give you hit shield work. They're going to give you all the things that you're going to need for collision. But as we know as slightly more experienced practitioners, how you put all this together and how you build towards the season is going to have massive implications on your fatigue levels down the line. So if in day one of pre-season, your team have flogged you with, like I say, 100-meter repeats and high volume, low recovery type work, all you're going to do there is create a level of fatigue that's going to take a while to recover from. Don't get me wrong, hopefully you're going to get through it. And I say hopefully because there will be soft tissue injuries for people who've had 4 to 6 weeks of doing relatively more sedentary type or nothing in some of them respect. They just want to chill out. But ultimately, that again has implications on Wednesday. So what historically I've done in my programming across pre-season is, because you've had the weekends off for the most part, Monday is that hard day. It's not hard in terms of volume, but you've got heavy stuff, you've got fast stuff. So you've got a high level of kind of neural demand. Yeah. You've then got high level of metabolic demand on Tuesday because you're getting, your coaches are running you essentially. Wednesday for me would be a shorter, smaller, less demanding, still a weight training session, strength and power focused, but with less volume and less demand than Monday, because you almost need to have what I call an undulation, whereby you have a hard day Monday, you have a moderate to hard day Tuesday. At some point you need an easy day or an easier day. So Wednesday's that sort of easier day. So it'd be like a 30 to 40 minute weight session and a 20 to 30 minute kind of targeted mobility, or what I call yoga flow, no speed. And then you're going to have the same sort of thing repeated itself on the Tuesday, because again, your club coaches are going to get you back. You might do, depending on what phase of pre-season you're into, you might have some units. You might do, there's going to be a relatively potential opportunity for speed exposure on a Thursday, because the outside backs or the backs are going to do more kind of, pattern play, or they're going to do some, starters or whatever it might be. So there's going to be an element of acceleration, deceleration, speed exposure for the backs. Forwards might stand around doing a load of lineouts, but they're going to do up and down, jump, lift. And then there will inevitably, again, another dose of running demands, whether, again, like I say, it depends on your coaching group. Are you going to play games? Are you going to do some fun stuff? Are you just going to do shuttles and broncos and all the stuff that, for most part, a lot of players don't enjoy, but it is what it is. It is a running-based game, and you've got to prepare for the running demands of the sport. Are you going to do a second exposure to collision that day or that week, or contact skills? Hopefully, most coaches in this day and age have got a structure to follow, where they're not going to just smash players week after week. I would then take Friday as a rest day, bearing in mind we've got Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, depending on your home life and what other things you've got going on. The summer's festival season and, holidays and all that sort of stuff. But I would take a rest day during the week if possible, and Friday makes the most sense to then come back to do a good quality strength and power session on the Saturday. If, you have pressure at home and you want your weekends off, which I totally respect. If you're a semi-pro player and you've had weekend after weekend playing rugby in the season, then you want your weekends back. You've probably got to fit your third weight session in on a Friday. But let's be realistic. By Friday, if you've had no rest days during the week, you are going to have a level of fatigue that's probably going to be a suboptimal session. Whereas if you give yourself Friday off and you come back and do a 9 o'clock session on Saturday morning, chances are you're probably going to do a better job. So the output-wise, you're probably going to do a better job, but I do understand the constraints of life, and you want your weekends off, or you want your weekends with your family, or you've got a weekend planned for weddings or whatever it might be, then chances are you can't do what's optimal. You've got to do something within a framework. And I think that's important to do as well, and we can get onto that. I think it's important for us to recognise that individual differences, without doubt, we know from the positions that we see, just the shapes and sizes of different players. I would try, in terms of optimization, is have a menu and say, right, this is what I want to accomplish in a 7-day period. How do I best structure my training week for my demands? If you work shifts, if you work nights, all that can play havoc with your circadian rhythms and your recovery and all those sort of things. So I do understand the constraints of everyday life, but I think in real terms, in the pre-season, if you want to basically show up to September in the Northern Hemisphere in decent shape, then my overriding advice would be every player, irrespective of position, needs to do speed work. Every player, irrespective of position, needs to do strength work, whether that's 2 sessions as a minimum, 3 as an optimal. 4, I genuinely believe, is overkill, because you've only got a certain amount of recovery to manage within your everyday training cycle. So if you're going to do 1 speed, 2 to 3 weights, and 1 conditioning, plus you've got yoga or yoga-esque, you've got movement training, and you've got 2 club training sessions, that is a pretty full schedule, and you've got to factor in recovery days as well. Two is a minimum. So there lies your biggest challenge, is fitting all those jigsaw pieces together.
So I've come up with a few questions which I imagine people might have listening to that. That's really such good insight on how they can structure their week. First one would be, if they're saying doing a 12-week block in the summer, would you recommend a week off at any point, or do they go for 12 weeks straight?
Oh, absolutely. Deloads are huge. Deloads, I think the benefits are, I'm not saying a full week off potentially, but I mean, let's get some context around this. I know that when the Blues Academy was going particularly well, we would go 6 weeks on, 1 week off almost religiously. And 1 week off was literally one weights, one speed. Yeah. And just enough to just keep those really good. Like I say, the decay rates of different physical qualities vary from quality to quality. So in terms of, and this might be interesting or at least valuable information for young people, mobility you lose in a day. And you and I can attest to that. So mobility is a day, speeds between 5 and 7 days.
Really?
Strength between 15 and 30, and aerobic capacity 30-ish days. So that's why I always bias myself towards those speed, strength, and power qualities, because they're the qualities that decay the quickest. And obviously mobility is something that kind of, if you're going to warm up to do a strength and power session and you're doing 3 days a week, you've almost by default got 3 mobility sessions in, because you're prepping to lift. So you can do some of the areas that get tight, the hips, the calves, the shoulder. You can do some prehab within your warm up at least 3 times a week. So at least you're staying on top of mobility week in, week out. And then, I mean, from that point of view, it's like, well, if you've got those menu items, that's the key. I think that's the key.
And then say, and another I hate to refer to the Instagram questions, but we are basing a lot of this on what we get asked, because this is what people want to know. Somebody might say, will that week that you just described with the weight stimulus, the speed and the running stimulus, will that vary dramatically from a prop to a winger?
This is something that they're probably not going to want to hear, but the realities are, and this goes back to treating the person and the player before the athlete. All these qualities are general physical qualities that transfer to match play. So the answer is no, and I'll tell you why. General preparation is all the physical preparation that I've looked after as a S&C coach for all these years. Specific preparation is club training, match exposure. The best way to get fit to play rugby is to play rugby, but you can't play rugby every day because of the collision element. So ultimately, sports specificity is playing and training for your sport. The physical qualities that underpin your sports performance are general qualities. A strength session and a speed session is applicable for every position on the field. Yes, a prop may only run 5, 10, 15 in a game, and an outside back runs 50, but you can differentiate speed qualities for a back and a forward, but they all need speed. Same with strength. A back needs lower body strength like a forward needs lower body strength. A forward needs power like a back needs power. They just use those physical qualities in a different context in game-specific environments. Happy? No, you understand this, but I think a lot of people, and I will do it now I've got the platform, sport-specific training in the gym is a massive myth, and I know one episode down the line.
You're right.
This is what we need. The general physical capacities of speed, strength, power, endurance, repeatability, all these things are general qualities that, like I say, contextually you use in game-specific environments. That's where sport specificity is. That is the sport specificity. This is just filling a bucket with great qualities so that you can use these and transfer them to this.
I love that. I asked that because I knew that's what your answer would be anyway, because we think along the same lines. We've seen all the pro environments, but I think people ask that question, they expect the working week of a prop to be worlds apart from the working week of a winger. I'm like, you're badly mistaken.
Specific network, specific mobility for a prop versus 90% of the programs look the same.
Oh my God. And that's what I say. No, they don't.
Yeah.
They don't differ.
No,
that much,
and even the content of those sessions. And I mean, when people say, "Oh, is this individually specific for me?" Well, you squat 200 and I squat 100. So the individual specifics is the loading, and maybe tinkering with the rep scheme, one or two sets, one or two reps. We both need the same thing. And going back to the power stuff we talked about, in the heat of competition, when you're 100 kilos and I'm 80 kilos and I've got to hit that ruck, the better, if more efficient I am at basically producing force as quickly as I can, gives me at least half a chance to try and win that collision or that contest at the ruck or whatever other skill elements going on in the game. And, the acceleration piece, a 9's got great acceleration qualities and the props at guard, and he can't quite make up the space in the gap.
Prop, you need to accelerate.
Correct.
Yeah.
And this is where this, like I say, they're general qualities that transfer to the game exposure. That's the simple reality.
And where I want to clear it up as well, I think where some young trainers get confused, we're talking about 9% of the gym stuff is very similar. Where people are getting confused from some people online is, the skill-specific training, now that's drastically different.
Yes.
Now that is, and that's where I think when you have a really good skills coach, they'll integrate skill-specific training. Say you're a prop, then you can be quite creative when you're doing a scrummage session in your 10-15 minute warm-up, doing some strength-specific work and core work and shoulder warm-ups. That's when you do that work. You don't do that work as a superset with your hex bar deadlift jumps. So I think you've got to differentiate the two.
This is 100%.
So that's why I think people get confused. They think they need to be in a squat rack with their head, a prop, with their head with a band around their head, doing a simultaneous one-arm row and somebody's pushing their hip. I'm like, no, you're badly mistaken.
Correct.
That's more of a skill-specific... Well, you wouldn't do that, but you do a skill-specific warm-up where you transfer the strength qualities from the gym onto the field. Correct. And that's where a good skills coach should liaise with an S&C and be like, right, what specific stuff can we do on the pitch which will complement their training? That's where I think people get confused.
This is the 360-degree approach to player development, which is... Like I said in the previous episode, I used to be so absorbed with 25% of the time is my time to develop physical. But actually, am I helping develop a better player? That's the first thing, or the better player. But also, like you say, it's what are you doing then on the field? And going back to the planning and the application of all this stuff within that weekly structure, the skill-specific stuff is for field training. And general preparation is for the speed, the weights, the power stuff, and the running. Even some of the running stuff is general. Sport-specific training and sport-specific skill development is all about your field sessions, that Tuesday, Thursday. And if going back full circle to my benchmarking and testing, and if your hands are terrible, you don't need your physical KPIs to tell you that. As a player that you need to do handling before or after every training session. That's part of your physical. That's part of your development. Forget about physical development. And we both look at players, not just athletes anymore. And it's got to be, you need to spend some time catching and passing, because if you drop 9 out of 10 passes, going back to Joe Adua, I love him. I mean, you almost had to... I mean, mate, I remember, I'll tell you a story about him. I know we're kind of going full circle to storytelling from other episodes, but I remember, and this is a true story, went to the Middlesex Sevens. You know Middlesex Sevens? Twickenham, massive tournament, huge. Joe was on the wing for Leicester Tigers, big club. I genuinely think it was either dropped 8 or 9 of the passes that he got during the game exposure that he had. The passes he caught, guess what? Scored tries. I mean, in 7, it was comical after a while. I'm going to have to find him on the old socials later and apologise. Joe Adua, but like I say, physically the most gifted rugby player of all time. But it was about not just the physicals. And I know we're going full circle.
No, I think you're right. Don't confuse your skill training with your strength training.
No. You don't want to be doing, like you say, a superset of squat followed by, blindfolded, single arm, offload round the back, Sonny Bill Williams style.
Can I just confirm as well, you have never seen that in your career in USA, in the English Premiership, in the Celtic League. I've never seen it at Cardiff, at Wales, or the Lions. It doesn't happen.
No.
So just for those who think that happens, it doesn't happen.
It doesn't happen.
But it makes a sexy Instagram reel, and that's why people do it.
Exactly.
They do it because it gets good views on Instagram. It's not what the pros do.
No, exactly. It's not what the pros do. And I also think some of those accounts are kind of almost parody accounts where they're showing some of these what do you call them, highlight reels, it's just trying to traction, likes, reach, whatever you might call it on the socials. Whereas, I mean, I know, and I've seen it, and I've bitten to it years and years ago now. I've slightly mellowed in my time now, but it's clickbait. It's clickbait. It's people like, and you might have a 59-minute of really, really great high quality strength and conditioning, well structured, really well programmed, intelligent volumes, intensities, all that sort of stuff, the right progressions and everything. And then a 60-second snapshot of someone, like you say, with the neck harness, throwing a tennis ball, with the bands and people pushing them and putting them, is 1% of the training just to get that little bit of social interaction on the media profiles.
Yeah, I'm glad that came up, because that one bugs me the most, to be honest, regards to that. And lastly on this, I imagine the last question somebody might come up with is, what if, due to my work, my time constraints, I can only do a weight and a running session on the same day? Which one comes first, and how much time in between sessions should I have? Yeah,
I mean, ultimately, it's about making a decision, isn't it, on what and on your constraints, and you're right, and this does come up quite a lot. Well, I always bias the needs with what's required the most. So if their strength qualities require the most work, then focus on that. If their endurance qualities are missing, focus on that. But ultimately, I think on the back of this, and we get asked this a lot as well, the biggest one I have about time commitments and time demands, you can do a strength session in 20 to 30 minutes. You don't need, I don't know where an hour or 90 minutes or 2 hours comes from within the realms of, high quality programming. If you've only got 20 to 30 minutes to do a weight session, don't use, I've only got 20 to 30 minutes of time to not do it. It's a bit like our hashtag of do the work. Yeah. You can make sustained progress. I mean, I know I'm 50 and I've got a relatively...
I saw it yesterday, it was good.
Mate, 40 minminutes all in. And that includes, I've 45 minutes. Full body, 4 exercises. If you're 20 to 30 years old, you can do a 5 to 10 minute warm up. You can do 3 sets of 3 or 4 really big, return on investment exercises in half an hour. Yeah. You've done something of real high quality that allows you to create and drive sustainable progress. So if you've got 20 minutes, you can do a mobility movement flow type session. You can do a short, even though it takes 10 minutes to prepare for it, you can do 5 40-meter sprints in the other 10 minutes. So you can do a speed session in 20 minutes. You can do a weight session in 20 minutes. You can do a mobility session in 20 minutes. You can do a repeated speed session in 20 minutes because you can warm up for 10 and you can just do on the minute, 50 and backs if you can use that time effectively and efficiently if you think about it with a little bit of logic and a little bit of common sense.
Oh, amazing
you
tips.
Can do 2 hours of training in a week and get really good results. You can.
That's good. It's great for people to hear because I think some people think, if I can't commit, I haven't got 8 hours.
You don't need 8 hours. Yeah. You can do good quality work in across the whole of the week. Bearing in mind there's 168 hours in a week. Yeah. Don't tell me you can't find 2 to 4 hours a week to do some really purposeful work. Anybody, any walk of life.
I think that helps them explain how to plan your pre-season.
I hope that's valuable.
I guess it's kind of similar to in-season then, isn't it? I know we're running out of time now, but in-season is probably the same, but then you just, like you say, you just deload the front end of the week depending on how tough your game was on the Saturday.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind touching on that. I mean, the realities are game demands are the highest outputs of both psychological and physiological stress. There's absolutely no doubt if you're going to put it in context. Game days are 10 out of 10 for effort and emptying the tank. So I think the weekly structure then has to look, trying to not steal a football model, but the front end of the week is recovery, the middle of the week is loading, and the back end of the week is tapering, and you go through that process all over again. So this is where there's much more challenge around differentiation between what each individual needs. A 7 needs more recovery Monday, Tuesday. or Sunday, Monday. An outside back who makes one tackle but might sprint might only need 1 day's recovery because their contact demands have been different. So we're now trying to individualize much more effectively, especially in the pro regions or especially in the pro realm. But
would you run it back on a Monday if they played a game on a Saturday? Would you make sure they stay away from high speed running on a Monday?
For the most part, I think we've always, again, it's about constraints, isn't it? In the pro game, you've got another game to prepare for, so you've got to go back to training. But Monday can be much more video review, medical. You've got wraparound care around you, which is looking after your nutrition, looking after, your soft tissue and the bumps and the bruises. But most teams by Tuesday have got to do some work because we're preparing for another game, aren't
Tuesday's
we?
the big day.
So it's about intelligent programming again, isn't it? But there's going to be players who didn't play on a Saturday who can do full body weights and speed on a Monday. Yeah. There's going to be guys like you who couldn't walk till Tuesday/Wednesday, maybe Thursday.
Couldn't talk until Tuesday.
But this is where. I think what I wanted to get across before we wrap the episode is recover, load, taper, go again. You've got to be ready and prepared by Saturday if you play Saturday to Saturday, by Friday. You can train, and I know we get asked this a lot. Yes, you can do full body weights on a Thursday. You don't need high volume. 12 total sets, 3 legs, 3 upper push, 3 upper pull, some hamstring or some accessory work, 12 total sets. You don't need 30 sets. You don't need bodybuilding volume. You need high quality stimulus where you can still feel ready mentally and physically, and you're prepared for your game. You then can have a nice taper on a Friday, play Saturday, recover Sunday, go again.
What about fitness then in season? If somebody's getting at least 60 minutes a game, is that enough fitness for them, or would they need to do some top-up work in the week? What would you recommend?
At pro level, it's going to depend massively on different players. I think at club level, where you've got other demands and you've got other constraints, if you're training Tuesday, Thursday, playing Saturday at least 60 minutes, fitness is the least of your worries. I genuinely believe, and you know my bias anyway, the strength qualities, the speed qualities, the power qualities are the things that you want to develop to get better at your game. And we've talked about it in our VBT. Power, this isn't my opinion, this is scientific evidence and research that's pretty well documented and validated. Power differentiates the elite from the sub-elite. In terms of every single match outcome, in terms of specific elements, requires power to be at the forefront, carrying, tackling,
jump in the
ruck,
air,
jump.
Ball.
Power is the differentiating factor. So keep those qualities in mind when you're thinking about your programming and your work to do outside of club training. And like I say, even in season, even if you've got 2 40-minute windows to do weight sessions, you can do it. You can do it. And, most of the programming that we provide on SW7's platform is about quality and not quantity. And it's about, like I say, sustainable forward progress through basically doing the work consistently.
Yeah, there you go. Well, that's how you design your week. And I think it's also worth mentioning as well, you jump on Instagram every Tuesday as well, don't you? So if there is any burning questions that we haven't answered from this, Toomsy chucks up a question box every Tuesday night for Toomsy Tuesdays. And if there's something you want to find out, you're more than happy to answer those, aren't you, on the Instagram? So that's
and
good.
We'll delve into more of this as we go on the pod.
Yeah, look forward to next week. Cheers, Toomsy.
Cheers, mate.